Councilmember Ledeju.
Present.
Councilmember Matias.
Here.
And Councilmember Palmeras is absent.
Yes, he's excused. Thank you. So our next item is approval of the minutes. May I please have a motion?
Can I? Because I can't because I reviewed them.
Thank you.
So I move that we approve the July 1st meeting minutes.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Matias.
Yes.
Councilmember Ledeju.
Yes, thank you. So our next item is Operations Bureau Monthly Statistical Report.
Captain for the Vallejo Police Department. I believe you guys all have a copy of it. As you can see, our patrol division staffing is at 56, with 40 officers and 7 police assistants plus supervisors. The traffic division is still staffed with an acting lieutenant, 2 officers, senior police assistant, and a professional staff. The crimes are listed below, and also the associated beats now. There's a handful that are up slightly, but most of them, murder, robbery, aggravated assault, kidnapping, burglary, larceny, stolen vehicles, and arson are all down. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Councilmember Matias, do you have any questions?
Hold on.
So we will open up for public comment on this report. Do we have anyone in this room who would like to speak on this report? No? Yes? Okay. Manny, do we have anyone online that would like to speak on this report?
Through the chair, we do not have any members of the public who would like to speak at this time.
Thank you very much. So I'll now turn it over to Councilmember Matias.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Ledeju. So, when I look at the staffing section, it's always, these numbers don't kind of add up to me relative to what you guys share out at council meetings. So when it comes to the full, when we're talking about the whole enchilada and you're in the 80 and you're showing that 80 number, where are we? Because these numbers, I don't think they add up to 80 something. So how many full-time officers do we have in the agency right now? It's somewhere, I know it's always somewhere between 78 and 82. Yes.
Yeah, Councilmember. So the numbers here in staffing, we're just reporting out on patrol, which is the largest complement of the officers. Traffic is relatively small, but some of the larger areas are detectives. So we have a contingent of detectives as well. We have our internal affairs staff also, and we have our compliance division. And then, of course, there's administrative staff as myself and some others. So we're in the 82, 83 range. What you're seeing here on this monthly is just patrol staff and traffic staff.
Okay. And then my follow-up then leads to recruitment. So how's the pipeline relative to, the projection we have of where we want to end up at the end of the year? Do you have an update on that?
Yeah, I'm just going to regurgitate what we reported out on the last the report out with the public safety staffing. So we have about 12 people in training, various forms of training. So that could include the academy as well as the field training program. So that's 12 added to our current 82, 83. That bring us to close to mid-90s. And then our total complement right now is 99. So we had at that time about 28 people in various forms of backgrounds. So we do anticipate that we'll be able to at least offer 5 positions until we have our full staffing FTE.
And that's off of the December 2026 date?
That's off of the new budget numbers. So that's off of this past June.
Okay. I guess my eye is towards the end of the sheriff's contract and where the numbers will be once that contract ends.
assuming everybody in training passes successfully and everybody that we hire on the other 5 pass successfully, they will be in various stages of training. So 6 months in the academy, another 5 to 6 months in field training, and then probationary period. Historically, we lose about a third of those folks. So if you're looking at 17 people through various forms of training, we'll probably lose at least a third. So our net positive on that will be somewhere in the realm of, I can't do the math off my head, but about 12 or 13.
Okay. And then the last item on recruitment is, if I'm not mistaken, the sort of second payment attached to the recruitment and retention plan was probably paid out recently. It would be helpful to know how successful that was in the grand scheme of things, and if there's other things that you think we should be exploring as a council. It's not something for you guys to, comment necessarily on today if you don't feel comfortable doing so, but we just want to get some data to assess effectiveness and also see if we have to look at other options.
So I do think the retention bonus was beneficial towards many of the officers that we retained. The loss during that time frame was minimal, if any. The recruiting bonus for laterals, unfortunately, has come to an end per that contract. So that may be something that needs to be considered or revisited at some point, because we are still trying to recruit qualified laterals because there's a much shorter training time. They don't have to go to the academy all over again. Their time in the field training program is much shorter. So that is a desire.
Yeah, so we had enough money for 15 laterals. I'm not sure the exact number that we were able to hire from that 15, but what the captain was referring to is that expired. So we have to do some budgetary and administrative cleanup to renew that, so that way we can carry over that money that was unused to hire the remaining 15.
And you still see value in having that program for laterals, is what I'm hearing.
I do.
Okay.
If we have a lateral that we are able to hire, as the captain mentioned, we save at least 6 months of training time in the academy, but also the expense of having to pay them while they're in the academy, as opposed to pay them while they're in the field training program, which is out in the field.
Okay.
So there is significant benefit.
The following section I wanted to touch on is abandoned vehicles. Can you, if you don't mind, just get a little bit into the weeds and give us some line of sight into what those numbers may look like today? Because I know this is a month behind or 2 months behind, so I was just curious to see where you guys were.
It is. I was going to talk about that during the traffic.
Oh, okay.
portion further down.
That's fine. Thank you. And then just looking at the report, the last time I was here, I was just sort of expressing some general concerns around the uptick in violence that we were seeing in beats 6 and 7. The ones in my district in beat 1, I generally get the sense that that's happening in the plaza. So I guess my question to you guys is beat 6, beat 7, and then beat 1 in the plaza. Like, are there targeted strategies you guys are, looking into in those areas to address spikes?
Are you specifically referring to larceny?
Yes. Larceny, and I'd have to compare it. I was last here in June. I missed the last meeting, but I think I had noted in that meeting that I had seen a spike just across categories for beat 6 and 7 in robbery, aggravated assault, like larceny. So I was just curious if you guys were looking into that more closely, or if you had done some targeted enforcement in that area.
Yeah, I'll answer that. So we had, as you know, we had some violent crime, a number of homicides, and so we had to kind of shift our strategy because we had a rash of catalytic converter theft, like quite a few, that we were, with the POP team sergeant here tonight, we were developing certain traditional and non-traditional enforcement plans for dealing with the rash of catalytic converter thefts, we had to pivot, and we recentered on working closely with detectives to not only help them follow leads and identify offenders, but we fortunately were able to make an arrest with an individual that we believe committed 2 of those homicides, as well as another shooting as well. So at the same time, I reached out to the sheriff. We increased sheriff patrols as well during this surge of violent crime. And I reached out to CHP to see, as I had mentioned last night, to see if they would help us out like they were doing in the prior year. So we do intend to circle back now that we've kind of dealt with some of the immediate things that we had to deal with. And now we're going to circle back on any of these things that look like they may be related to the same individual, serial type thefts or crimes. So that is kind of a transitional strategy we'll probably be shifting to by the end of this weekend into next week.
And then my last question, I'm sorry, Councilmember Letiju. 0 fatal collisions in June. That's shocking. Is there anything we did differently this month, or it just so happens that there were no collisions?
I don't know that it was anything in particular we did. We did shift some grant funding, so there has been some additional ticket writing, although most of that started in July, actually. It did have a fatal collision in July, unfortunately, so I think June was just a lucky month for us.
And just there, I would just encourage, and we haven't had Public Works staff here, I think, in a few meetings, but we do have city manager presence in the meeting tonight. So I would just really encourage you guys to really figure out with Public Works if there's anything else we could be doing.
Yeah, and I know with the better improved lighting that Public Works is working on, that makes a big difference for nighttime traffic and pedestrian traffic. I think a large lift is with all the devices that have been deployed. You know, the speed, I don't know all the terminologies, but the speed ramps, the turnabouts, I mean, that all kind of helps. You know, so I think it's a combination, kind of a team effort as we build out a little bit more of our staffing for traffic, and we could focus in. We're starting the Safe Start to School program. Sergeant Hollis can go into more detail about that, but it really brings more traffic awareness also. And so I think it's a combination of all of those efforts.
Thank you, team. That's all I got, Councilmember.
Thank you. Just a couple follow-up questions. Is it possible on the report with staffing that we could add recruitment as it relates to patrol division and traffic division? And then can you tell me, and you may not know, what is the delta between hiring a lateral and versus someone going to academy? Because there's a cost savings there.
Are you just talking about just the time?
Time and
And-
money. So if I hire a lateral, I have cost savings on time, cost savings on actual dollars because I'm not paying for the academy.
Yeah, it's usually a couple $100,000, and so we
Per
pay
person?
per person.
Mhm.
So we pay for their salary while they're in the academy, so that's an expense. Fully loaded is half a year, and we pay for the academy itself and all the supplies that we have to furnish to the academy. So the ammunition for all the firearms training. So there's a lot of supplies that go with it, but just ballpark about 200,000.
So the reason I asked that question is, as we're talking about budget, right? How do we show that from a budgetary perspective? So when we are talking to the city manager, we are talking to the council, we're showing the delta, we're showing the savings, and what does that truly mean to the bottom line of your budget? I think that's very important, how you break down those numbers,
We can
Mr.
prov-
Accountant.
Yeah, we could provide that.
Okay, thank you. The chief is really good with accounting. So then with that also, if you're bringing on 17 officers, you anticipate losing at the very least 1/3 of those officers, then why don't we account for that delta at the top end?
We are, as we move forward, so we have not been in a position where we have reached our maximum FTE. This is a first in decades. So that has not been an issue. However, I've talked to the city manager, and what our intention is to develop a list, a hire ready list. Historically, our hiring practice, we stop recruiting when we hit full FTE, full-time employees. So when we hit 99, historically we have stopped. And so what that does is it then puts a full halt to our recruitment apparatus. And sometimes we know it could take anywhere between 18 months from start to finish to even get that person to a hiring decision. So our new strategy is that we will have a hire ready list. That is good. So if somebody fails out of any portion of the training, we can then pull directly from the list. They've been vetted already. They've gone through the entire process. We can send them immediately to the academy. So that saves time. The risk
So
is...
can I ask a question, just so that I understand? So even though you have a ready list, as you state, but I just want to make sure I understand, we're still going to hire that, whatever that 1/3 is for the number of anticipating we're going to lose 1/3 in that whole recruitment process, correct?
I don't think I have the authority to tell you the answer on that, but I would like that. If we can hire ahead knowing that we're going to likely have some vacancies, but I think that's more of a budgetary question on whether or not.
Well,
those-
but you're going to lose 1/3 from that class, you're going to lose 1/3 of the population that you hire. It's a given. It is known across the industry. It is an industry standard. So I think that's a conversation that we really need to have. But in having that conversation is having someone take the time to bring forth the data. And it is a good conversation when you're doing an update. How do you talk about those things to the full council? And what do they mean? Because I think that's really important when we talk about the fact that we have a whole apparatus, a whole group of individuals, the sheriff, 7, 8 positions, whatever that is. That's a big deal. And we're trying to get to a specific number, ensure that we are on top of our hiring so that when we move forward, we've already replaced that number of individuals. And in order to do that successfully, it means that we have to account for that 1/3. That's the delta. It's a known delta. But how do we show that in the data so that we are making data-driven decisions, or at least having data-driven discussions around it and understanding what are the pros and cons and what would it cost us to do that and why it's important or not important, and making choices around those kinds of things where we say that we have commitment. And so when I see that kind of data, then it helps me to understand what kind of, how do I make that commitment? What's the value of that commitment? And how do I explain that commitment on the dais and talk to my colleagues why this is important along with the city manager? So that's the kind of data that helps me to better understand and to be able to push where needed. Welcome. It's good to see you. Would you like to comment on my statements?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and thank you. As the chief mentioned, the trend's looking like the department could achieve 0 vacancy rate. That would be something to behold, okay? I said the trend is looking like that, but we haven't gotten there yet. But the key is we're not waiting to get there to strategize and to figure out how we want to deal with assuming and anticipating that there's a very great likelihood that we'll get there. And so the chief's, the department's authorized complement is what it is. So when you're dealing with financial constraints, it forces you to be more innovative and creative in terms of how you engage the challenge, okay? And so what we're doing here is the chief's not there yet in terms of 0% vacancy, okay? But he's close. So we want to be ready and prepared. And so what we're doing is it's going to require a very tight and effective collaboration between the police department and the human resources department. Okay, they're going to have to be very well coordinated because this is going to turn into sort of, we've heard of like just-in-time purchasing or procurement. This is going to be just-in-time hiring and getting people ready to go into the academy. And so what we've agreed to do is to continue to maintain ready list of, of applicants so that we don't have to spend that 3 or 4 months of just getting somebody on a list to be considered. So that if he gets a vacancy, we can move as quickly as possible, or if by some chance our financial position changes for the better, and we may decide, or the council may decide to increase the authorized complement, and we're ready with a list of eligible people to be considered to move on to the next process. So that's where we are. Is that correct, Chief? Yeah. And so I support
Correct.
that. That's a great exercise for us as a city government from an administrative standpoint, because it's going to require 2 departments to sync and to communicate a lot. And again, as you always say, council member, the data is so critical, and it's going to force us to focus on the data, actually. And so it's going to be an all-around positive and constructive experience.
Thank you for those comments, and it would be really great to see that data, just to be able to put our eyes on it and know what we're looking at. So I say that to the city manager as well as to our chief. So thank you for answering my questions, and thank you, City Manager Black, for being here with us this evening. Would you like to continue? Go for it. You were going to talk about traffic?
Certainly. That's not next. but
Okay.
I can jump ahead.
Do you want to move on to
So-
traffic? Let's go to traffic and then we'll come back.
Certainly. So year-to-date, I believe they have actually had 9 fatal collisions now. The traffic division has issued, it looks like 765 citations. They have increased efforts in the Glen Cove at South Regatta area to include South Regatta at North Regatta, Beston, North Regatta, and Ebb Tide, and have issued over 70 citations in that area alone. We are slotted to get our radars and our LiDARs updated for calibration in the coming months. As I had stated earlier, we had reallocated some grant funding to increase our efforts for directed traffic enforcement, which has already occurred. There is currently a temporary upgrade lieutenant, 2 officers, a clerk, a police assistant, and a part-time cadet. Out of the 7 police assistants that were on patrol, 5 of them remain because 2 of them have started the police academy to become police officers now. So those 5 that remain continue to help with the C-Click Fix abandoned vehicle list. Last week, that list had about 460, I think it was 66 cars on it. But it's not actually 466 because all of the police assistants, including the senior police assistant that work in traffic, all have paper lists. So the 466 that are on there, the lists have been printed and have been disseminated. So we are, in essence, caught up for all intents and purposes, running just 2 to 3 weeks behind. So.
Thank you for that report. Do we have any public comments in the room? Mr. Highwells?
What can I say? It's great. A year ago, it was a year wait to get an abandoned car red tagged and eventually towed. So, yeah, I'm thrilled to death every day. And I've been on a jag lately of reporting a bunch of cars in our neighborhood, and it's working out fine. I'm real happy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for helping me in District 3. Do we have any public comment online, please?
Through the chair, currently do not have any members of the public online who would like to speak at this time.
Thank you. Then I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you, council member. So just 2 quick points. I know well over a year ago we had been considering starting a volunteer program. Is that off the table at this point?
So we do have volunteers as of recently who are more than willing to go out there and check and see if the cars are there. Unfortunately, so much time has elapsed that most of the cars that get reported are still there because a year hasn't elapsed since they were put on C-Click Fix. So we are more than willing to still have them go out and check on the vehicles, but we don't think we're going to have quite the same, not their ratio that we had originally anticipated. And because all of the police assistants already have the paper copies of all the lists, I just didn't want them to duplicate efforts and go check on a car that's already been towed by a police assistant. So as new ones come in, we can certainly print up those lists and give them to the volunteers first to go check on. But I anticipate that most of them will be there because the time frame is now shortened up so much.
Okay. Just want to make sure we got a lot of folks that are eager to support with public safety, and I want to make sure we're still thinking about, in addition to the Neighborhood Watch program, in addition to all the other initiatives you have underway, Sergeant, that we're getting folks into the pipeline and just getting them involved in community.
Yes, and one of our coordinators, Ms. Lisa Williams, she's working on getting the volunteers positioned more into the police department. So we have volunteers that we're going to place into the communications division, also known as dispatch. They're going to help out with the filing. We have volunteers that are going to help us maintain the patrol cars when they're out of service, keeping them clean and making sure that they're presentable for the public. We have volunteers that are going to do mail runs. That way, our professional staff can just continue working instead of having to put their hours on the road. We have volunteers that are, of course, going to be assigned to the traffic division as needed. And then also our volunteers have already started being produced into the community at our community engagement details, our back to school details. So the volunteers are fully up and running into our department and helping out with the community. So it's amazing.
Okay, great. And then the last comment I have is actually regarding my district. So we've had, just over the past year, we've had several traffic collisions on, not just on Oakwood and Ascot, but also on Ascot and Redwood. In that area, you always have stuff going on. And so to the extent that you do have capacity to provide some traffic enforcement in that area, I'd really appreciate it. There's a lot of concern from my residents, and we've actually had folks lose their lives because of collisions on right by Bethel. So it's a known problem. I don't necessarily feel like we've adequately addressed it, and it's not just an enforcement thing, it's also a public works project that I think they should take on, because the speeding there on Redwood going on to Emerald Callahan has always been out of control. And there's a lot of seniors and also a lot of kiddos that live in the area. So I just want to put that on your radar, because it is something I've been hearing about especially over the past month and a half. I've gotten text messages about it. That is all I have on this item, Councilmember.
As it relates to the volunteers, about how many volunteers do we have and what's the capacity, meaning total capacity for volunteers?
We currently have approximately 20 volunteers on staff right now.
Excuse me. So is that the maximum?
We never really had to worry about the maximum before, so right now it's doable.
Okay. And what is the age requirement?
18 until
Okay.
you're ready to retire.
Starting at 18.
Yes.
Okay. And then as it relates to volunteers working with you, you know, because I know that we've cut back on our neighborhood watch meetings and how we really can upscale that and spend more time in our neighborhood watch program. How would having volunteers helping in that area, what would that do? What would be the impact? And Chief, you may not have an answer right now, but it's just food for thought.
Well, I know one of the biggest impacts right now is the word of mouth. To see something, you say something. Of course, our volunteers are community members, and they spread the word. That's one of the biggest. You know, speaking of your community, I think we're organizing neighborhood watch as we speak on Darley, and the more we get the word out, the more we have these neighborhood watch meetings, the more we have these block parties, the more awareness is brought to our community. I was talking to Ms. Douglas, who's organizing the block party in your district, and just her knocking on doors and meeting her neighbors and establishing the neighborhood watch, she learned about so many issues in her community that she wasn't even aware of, which was mind-boggling to her. So this is just, I mean, it's bringing together the community. Also, it's bringing people that want to make a difference in the neighborhood that can now be a part of our volunteer program. And just the volunteers help organize these block parties, and they help organize these meetings. So it's great.
So if I want to be a volunteer, what do I need to do? Where do I call? Where do I email?
Well, first you can contact me via telephone at 707-567-4233, or you
Can you say that
email.
again, please?
That is 707-567-4233, or you can email me at Rashad, RASHAD Hollis, HOLLIS at cityofvallejo.net, NET. Or you can go to our website, vallejopd.net, NET, and we have a section under Neighborhood Watch Program. Not only does it has a starter guide on how to create and start a neighborhood watch, and if it becomes a little complex, I don't mind an email or a phone call, and we can walk you through the process just to make sure that it's established correctly.
So I don't even have to read the guide. All I have to do is call you, and you will walk me through the process and help me begin setting it up, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So how many block parties thus far have we had since the summer has started?
That is a good question. I would say we had at least approximately 50 neighborhood watch community events this last fiscal year. I don't know exactly that number, and some of the neighborhood watch / block parties kind of get combined, and some of them are separate. Some of them that we host, but there's been at least 50 neighborhood watch meetings that the community has held on their own and invited us to.
Okay, thank you. So do you have any other questions, or City Manager, would you like to interject?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. With that said, I'll close this item and we'll move to our next item, 6A, Domestic Violence Initiative.
I'll open this up, and if you have anything, Lieutenant, to add. But we have been working, as you guys know, and this is a standing topic for quite some time on beefing out our domestic violence initiative. Two of the main build-out areas. One is gun violence restraining orders. So these are restraining orders to allow us to provide to victims of domestic violence that firearms are variable within that investigation. The other piece is developing some sort of lethality assessment protocol. This allows us to kind of quantify the risk level with these type of domestic violence calls. So both of these items are pretty much complete on our side. We are waiting for help from our HR department to engage in meet and confer discussions with our labor union for policy changes and enhancements. And then after that, it will likely go to the POAC because it is a policy change. And so once we iron out all the details or any impacts that we might have to address, that last stage would be the POAC, and then we can go to training and implementation.
Greetings, Lieutenant Catham. Just to update on what the chief said. Since the last meeting, we have initiated the RFQ for funding. It started on July 13th and it closes on August 14th. I'm told many organizations are applying for it. I don't actually have access to see who, but that's moving along. I have spoken with Tanya at Best about several things, including the risk assessment, and she has informed me that referrals in the meantime have been going well. So that's good. We're operating smoothly with Vest. I spoke with the Family Justice Center earlier this month. I've been working mainly with Nora. She was helping us redesign our domestic violence pamphlet. And earlier this month, she advised me it was ready. It is current. And on Monday, I received all the information. At this point, all I have to do is format it, get it into a foldable pamphlet. We can get it on the website, one-click easy access. We can make it available in multiple languages. And that was a large lift by the Family Justice Center, and I do want to thank them for that. In addition to that pamphlet, they have created like a tri-fold card, kind of the size of a credit card that can be handed out, easier to carry, and can also be accessed through the website once we put it on there. So I do want to thank them for their efforts. That was very helpful to us. Sorry. Just some points about the pamphlet. It was restructured to highlight the PD's commitment to protect victims of domestic violence. It's now going to provide brief description of work for all victim service agencies listed in the pamphlet, what they do, what they specialize in, and how they can help. As I said, the website currently goes to a pamphlet, but it is difficult to find. I'm going to be working with our IT manager it's going to be on our homepage, one-click domestic violence resources, which will also incorporate human trafficking resources. This will ensure that the pamphlet our officers have physically matches the pamphlet on our website, because currently we have two different versions and both are not completely out of date, but obviously needed some updating. We're going to have an annual review to make sure the contents of the pamphlet are still correct, and make sure the service providers that are 24/7 are still able to provide those services, as well as shelters and whatnot. And then I already mentioned we plan on having it in multiple languages. Right now it's going to be English, Tagalog, and Spanish. It should be that way on the website, as well as what we can hand out to the public. So that's pretty much what's occurred since the last meeting. Hopefully I can have that up on the website within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then we'll get some printed copies to hand out when we go to calls for service.
And just to add on, we have about 10 applicants so far that have applied. So timetable on that, once the RFQ closes, We'll do the screening process, the interview and evaluation process, and we'll have a recommended vendor by the end of September.
And for the edification of the public, what would those services be?
I don't have the RFQ in front of me, but if you have it, could you just kind of highlight the scope of work?
Yes. So the RFQ is to identify experienced organizations that can provide services and support to victims of domestic violence while strengthening coordinated community-based intervention efforts. The department is seeking organizations with experience providing services such as crisis intervention, 24-hour crisis support, rapid victim follow-up, lethality assessment, safety planning, victim advocacy, family support services, emergency stabilization assistance, ongoing case management, multidisciplinary coordination, batterer intervention programs, and other evidence-based domestic violence services.
Does that conclude your report?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'd like to open up for public comment. Do we have any in the room, please? Please come.
All right, can you hear me now? All right, Tanya Brown-Rick, Executive Director with VES. I wanted to start off by notating item 6. There are errors in here. And in regards to VES training dispatchers, we did not do that. So I did want to bring that up. And also, it stated that I mentioned about creating a community resource pamphlet. That was Nora Martinez in this report. So I just wanted to identify those things. But I also wanted to give an update. After our training with VPD, we have been getting a lot of referrals from field officers. Clients are coming to our doors. They're calling. Our team is extremely busy on site, over the telephone. We're also located at the Vallejo courthouse. So survivors are also locating us there as well. So I just kind of wanted to give that update. So thank you, VPD, for raising awareness that VES is located here in Vallejo and making sure survivors have access to services for domestic violence. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. I'm going to say something which I think is related.
Hi, can you tell us who you are?
Oh, Anna Bergman. I'm going to say something which I think is related to the domestic violence, unfortunately, and it's slightly raining on everybody's parade about the volunteerism. I'm very concerned about how volunteers are screened and what supervision and accountability is available for volunteers. Unfortunately, you can have vigilantes. Sometimes the wrong people want to help the police for the wrong reason. So I would be just concerned about that and ask for there to be accountability and monitoring and perhaps a direct process for people to complain or notify about any problems with volunteers.
Thank you.
I'm Diane Peterson. I've spoken a few times on this topic, and I just want to say exactly on that point, my medical records were altered. I contend that it has to do with a smuggling case. I don't care who sees this. My medical records were altered according to domestic violence to make things look like they weren't. And nobody cared. Nobody cared. And I contend that's that network. And Kaiser did that. County did that. There is something going on, and nobody's addressing it. I'm sorry I'm the problem, but you should know that is reality. So I like the point that she made because it's valid.
Thank you. Do we have any more individuals in the room who would like to speak, please? Seeing none, do we have any commenters online?
Through the chair, we currently do not have any members of the public who would like to speak on this item at this time.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you, council member. So at a high level, I just have two questions. How are we funding the domestic violence initiative? Who can answer that one? Chief?
We do not have any additional funding right now, so we're just changing our processes. I think that once we get the RFQ complete and looking at what we can do to build out the program, our plan is to seek funding internally first, and on a dual track, look to see if there's any grant seed money that could be available by the end of our PSP partnership. So that's the end of September. So it's a real tight time frame right now, but those are our two immediate strategies for increasing funding.
Okay. And it's not like you can use up any of the vision funding for this, because that's also being used up currently.
So we looked at, good question, council member. We looked up to see how much overlap there was with gun violence. So the vision program is specific to reduction of gun violence. So we pulled up the last fiscal year and looked to see how many domestic violence cases we had and how many of those cases involved guns. And we had 7. And so out of those 7, 2 resulted in homicides. So if you kind of just did the math, just based on the funding that we have for vision, the various buckets of funding, that would only equate out to about $4,000 each year. So very little overlap. So we're going to have to look for probably more funding on domestic violence because we may not be able to rely too heavily on the grant funding specific to gun violence.
Okay. As a follow-up, I have a question to the city manager or the assistant city manager. So one of the things that we've been struggling with in our community is just a lack of philanthropic dollars coming in. I think every year, PD, ED, all the departments under your umbrella, they're always kind of tapping into the same buckets at the state and at the federal level. Anything you think your office can commit itself to doing to engaging the Kaisers, the Sutters? I know Blue Shield has, the foundation has a dedicated unit to support domestic violence initiatives. Like anything either that you've done in other jurisdictions or that you think your team can focus on to build relationships and get dollars in community to support some of this work? Because we got money problems, and so we got to get creative, and this needs to be funded.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just in my short time of being here, the city is engaged in a whole lot of grant-related activity. That's good and bad. It's great when you have the money, but then when it goes away, it's bad. So you have to, because the grant dollars are not permanent. In terms of philanthropy, I think the city does a great job in terms of seeking out grants and actually being successful in getting grant awards. That's been my observation so far. In terms of philanthropic dollars, that's a different animal. They look at different things. They're not necessarily nuts and bolts oriented. They're that pie in the sky policy. If you want to pursue development of a policy, you can get all the money in the world. But when you're trying to actually get stuff done, it's a whole nother ball game. But there are monies out there. We would just have to look at, who on staff has the skill set to, it's almost a full-time job to go out to philanthropic organizations. I guess the answer to your question, Councilmember, is we'll look at it and we'll see, what we can do. From a realism standpoint, we'll see what we can do. But going after philanthropic dollars, you have to have the right personnel who can interact with that world. It's a different world. Grants, we know how to do that. We know how to prepare the materials, develop the content, check all the boxes. So that's a long response to your question, Councilman.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm trying to get, I want to get the conversation going. I know we've had representation from some of our local partners in this meeting space, but to the extent that the council can draft a letter, obviously that we would vote on and would come from the mayor, identifying the need for funding around this area, around the trafficking program. Like, these are all unfunded programs.
Yeah.
And the concern I have is if we're not having those conversations right now, we're not going to really be able to make a dent in what is they're very real issues. You've got lives being impacted. And so we'd really appreciate if you guys can, have some discussion this month that we're offline around what actions the council can take to really get in front of folks and have those discussions as you've got RFPs going out. And I mean, Assistant City Manager Conley, I see you got up. Is there anything you'd like to touch on in terms of what you've seen, or maybe additional things we could be tapping into here?
So, good evening, everyone. Nalango Conley, Assistant City Manager. I would say, just to add to that conversation, City Manager Black said establishing a pipeline with philanthropic organizations requires a relationship, and that takes time to build that up. But I would say that one other source of ongoing funding is essentially, looking at the state or looking at the feds, right? Going after the funds at the state and the national level. Because the problem with grants is they really want to fund new work. It's rare that they're going to fund projects that overlap ongoing. So that would require, departments to constantly be changing, their approach, or we're just constantly executing pilot programs and then they end over a short period of time. If we really want ongoing funding, that's going to take some advocacy, probably with our elected officials, like I said, at both the state and the federal level, to get that ongoing support for programs. But then, building up the programs, we can do that focusing on some of the relationships, and then we can partner, with philanthropic organizations as well as the private sector.
All right, thank you for that. So just hoping that you guys can perhaps put a plan together this next month. And by a plan, I really mean like a few bullet points of like, here's a path, of things that the council can consider and that we can partner with the council on when we come back from break. The other thing is, since I have the chief and the city manager here, one of the things I was talking about 2 months ago when it comes to not just domestic violence, but sex trafficking is we're talking about specific programs. And we're also talking about specific actions that you guys are taking every month to build up that program from scratch. But I think one of the things I mentioned is the need for us to have a public safety plan. So like, this is what we're aiming to do in the next year. This is how we're going to get there. These are the buckets of funding that are going to tie into that. And so I know that probably goes beyond the capacity you guys have to, deal with so many different programs and issues on a week-to-week basis. But I would just want to see more structure around like all of these activities so that we're not going meeting to meeting. And it's not that you've done anything wrong. It's more like if we have a North Star and then everything kind of falls under that, then there's a plan we're following every single meeting. Because otherwise, we're just being reactive. To the extent that this committee can be helpful in that, I would really appreciate if you guys would just let us know but that's what I hope we can, in this committee, do. Like, put a plan together with outcomes, set of activities, funding, and then we can publish that, and then folks know, like, where we're headed with this work. And we can also use that to go to foundations to say, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and this is how we need your help. So there's that. My last question, GVRO. Yes,
Councilmember,
Chief.
Just real quick on that. I like your last comment on the plan. I think sometimes the plan really is dictated by how much resources we have. So we can generate a plan and then kind of guesstimate or estimate how much that would cost us, or we can figure out how much we have available, and then we could build a plan around that amount of resources. So I think it would be more helpful to us to kind of know what our limitations are, and then we can craft a plan, short, medium, long term.
I'm gonna think about that for a second. I'll come back to you on that, because I don't know if I agree. I think sometimes it just helps to say, here's where we're headed, and then, this is where we're at today, right? This is how much capacity we have, but here's the delta to fully have this program ramped up. And so I'm gonna let that marinate for a second. While I have you, the GVRO, that was my item that I requested at the council level. It's been over a year. So, I always ask you guys some variation of the same question. What is the holdup? Because this should be implemented. I mean, we've got many cities across the state that have a formal program. It's brought benefits to community. And so what commitments can be made this evening to make sure that GVRO tool is available to the police department?
You can go first, Chief. I'll follow you.
Oh, and then can you briefly describe the GVRO program? I'm sorry, because we're just trading acronyms. I was also doing that last night. My bad. So can you briefly describe the GVRO? I'm sorry, folks.
Absolutely. GVRO is just an acronym for Gun Violence Restraining Order. So much like a TRO, which is a temporary restraining order that's oftentimes used for domestic violence cases, that restraining order restricts a person from doing certain things. A gun violence restraining order restricts a person from having access to guns, but it also allows the officers to take possession of those guns as well. Those guns that are on premise, and then there is an obligation from the person served with that restraining order to then furnish any other guns that the officers were not able to seize that day of the incident. So it's a powerful tool to kind of remove, at least to the best of our ability, remove guns out of a domestic violence equation.
That was not what I thought it was, but I will defer to the chief's response on that one. I thought it was just gun violence reduction in general, but the chief, he explained that well.
So we had a basic, with our lexible policy, we had a basic program that we built out. So part of the build out is really to encompass incorporating it into our field response to domestic violence. So as any new program, you have to have all the forms that are necessary that the judicial process requires. You have to have the training, and you have to have the policy change. So we are at the policy change part, and it has been resting with our human resources since February. And I know they have a lot on their plate, but this, I've talked to the director and I've stressed the importance of this program moving forward swiftly. So my hope is that we can put this to the very top.
We have our assistant city manager sitting in the back who oversees human resources, and I believe she heard your statement.
Yeah, and I don't want to have, you guys know I'm straight up, so I don't, like, we shouldn't have to take votes on this. I've been asking, same way I've been asking about abandoned vehicles, the same way I ask about all these items, like, even the towing contract, I asked about it like 3 meetings in a row. I think you guys figured that one out. It's like, we shouldn't have to be asking several times in meetings. We should just get this done. So if you guys can please prioritize it, and have that brought up to council, I'd really appreciate it, because it is a tool that was implemented, I think in San Diego the first time by the city attorney down there, maybe a decade or 2 ago, and it has been used in many other cities across the state. It's an effective tool to deter violence, to get guns off the street, especially in very volatile situations. So this is something that would literally save lives, and we should have that tool made available to our officers. So I hope we don't have to bring this back at the next meeting and talk about it again. Thank you, Assistant City Manager. That's all I have, Council Member.
Thank you. So when we talk about philanthropy, how have we worked with the Solano Community Foundation?
For operational matters, or?
Around really finding ways to secure philanthropy dollars. They're equivalent to our San Francisco Foundation. So they work with many different organizations around philanthropy dollars, potentially individuals. So have we engaged the director or the executive director around a partnership and potentially how they might assist us with some of our programs in reaching specific donors?
Yeah, I have not engaged them for those budgetary items. What I can do is I can turn it over to the lieutenant and just talk about operational engagement with that department. I'll have another meeting with the city manager. If he authorizes me to start having those discussions, I'm happy to have them, and to see if there's any other help that we can get on the finance side.
So, City Manager Black, I'm not sure if you've met the executive director of the Solano Community Foundation. I know you have a short tenure, but I would like to request that you would put that on your bucket list.
I think it is already on my list. We
Okay.
just haven't gotten around to it yet. It's being scheduled.
Sounds great. Because that is, when we talk about having a special, a certain skill set to enter into that community, definitely the executive director would be helpful. And she really seeks to be of value to the city of Vallejo. And as a matter of fact, I think Assistant City Manager Conley, I'm sure you've had some interactions with the executive director, and that foundation actually is working with us around the encampment grant as well. I just want to touch on something that Councilmember Mateus talked about, the public safety plan, and I fully understand your point that you were making, Chief Ta. And that plan at this point really is aspirational, and it is saying this is what we need, and here's where we are, but this is where we need to go, and in order to do that, here are the steps that we need to take. And being able to, when you're engaging the Solano Community Foundation and other philanthropy opportunities, having that kind of information, as we all know, is extremely helpful. And again, I go back to the fact that without data, it's very difficult to convince someone to give you their money, right? And so, and I also know that we have a police department that's constrained, And so then when we talk about volunteers, you know, do we have a couple volunteers that have strong data analytics that can help you in these areas, so you can continue to do the kinds of things that you do on a day-to-day basis in your operations? And potentially, do we have a couple college students with strong data analytical skills and different type of IT skills that can help you do that kind of work? So those are some of the kinds of things to think about when you're also recruiting for volunteers. Our college students can take on a job and get credits, you know, volunteer and get credits. It's called work study. So there's many ways to bring in some of the skills that you need on a day-to-day basis to help your operations where we are very lean, and create a, if you will, an internship program as well through our education system. So we do have students who are interested in law enforcement and different aspects of law enforcement that potentially you can think about creating an internship program. I've done it, and it works. And many of my interns have come right through the ranks of my organization. So think about that. And I know it takes work and it takes time, but it pays high dividends in the end as well. And if they don't stay with you, the beauty of it is they have an understanding, they get an opportunity to have a different lens into the work that each of you do and you've dedicated your life to, and they're citizens. So that's a very powerful when they have those kinds of opportunities. I have no further comments, and I will close this particular report. So we will now move on to 6B, our vision program.
So I'll just have a quick comment, just kind of describe vision. Natalie Peterson, who works for the city, she's the assistant to the city manager. She's our point of contact for the city. So the Vallejo Vision Program, the vision acronym stands for Violence Intervention Support Improving Our Neighborhoods. So that's what vision stands for. It's a partnership between the PD, the city manager's office, other community partners, and the goal really is to use a evidence-based strategy to reduce gun crime, victimization, and community fear, reducing community fear. So I'm going to turn this over to Natalie. She'll go into a little bit more details about the vision program, some of the timetable on when we think we can start implementing the first few participants.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening. So there is the vision document in your guys' packet. I'm not going to read that to you, but I will go over some of the finer points of the document. So as Chief mentioned, this does tie back to our gun violence prevention. So trying to get guns out of people's hands, getting people who would be our next potential shooters and getting them out of that lifestyle by adding services and resources to them to hopefully get them to change their behaviors and exit that. We have 3 funding sources for vision that will get us through March 31st of 2029, and that's just over $1.8 million. $300,000 came from the general fund, a little over $3,000 came from the U.S. Department of Justice, the Office of Victims of Crime, and just shy of $1.2 million came from the California Board of State Community Corrections, CalVIP Cohort 5 grant that the police department was successful in receiving. As Chief mentioned, the partners are the Vallejo Police Department, the City of Vallejo, and we have contracted with Center for Urban Excellence, who goes by Q, to facilitate this with us. Contracts are currently being executed, and we anticipate implementing programs in the coming weeks. Dr. Dion Carter from Q is online and is happy to join this conversation should you guys have any questions for her this evening. So as part of this, Q will offer services such as intensive case management. They will act as a referral hub and have built a network of community partners and service providers to work directly with participants. And we'll also be doing the HVIP at Kaiser, where they will meet victims of gun violence at their hospital beds to offer them trauma-informed support focused on healing, safety, and discouraging retaliation. The mission for Vision is to implement an evidence-based strategic approach to reduce gun crime, victimization, and community fear by identifying the most prolific and repeat drivers of gun violence. And it will use a collaborative intervention model of support and accountability to disrupt violent behaviors. The goal is really to change the violent behaviors through that collaboration, promote victim and victim family support, as well as reduce crime and harm to the community and those engaging in violence. The candidates will be, the candidate criteria and the pool will be a collaborative determination that is evidence-based upon behaviors, so tangible data and information that a candidate has a history of gun violent behavior. And they will be considered through a variety of data points, including their criminal history, those individuals who are currently engaging in and or victims of gun violence, police reports, community input, known active gang affiliations, police officer and detective referrals, criminal justice partner intelligence, and Q candidate assessments. The support team, which is Q, will conduct wraparound and case management meetings in support of the scope of work and the agreements. VPD and Q will make the referrals to the candidates. Q will contact the individual to schedule a face-to-face meeting. Q will then facilitate the face-to-face meetings and provide them with a vision letter, and the candidate will complete an intake and assessment into the program. From that point forward, Q will assign a case manager to engage with the individual at least once per week for intensive case management and support as they make their transition. And city staff will receive regular updates on the candidate's status of their case management, and then the aggregate data can be shared with council and the community. Follow-up, or post-intervention follow-up with the candidates is critical to make sure that the program remains legitimate and successful. The Vision support team will attempt to establish a follow-up meeting with candidates to go into a greater detail about the opportunities and potentially establish an individual plan for the candidates. Vision will communicate with all partners about the candidates who have received the intervention, and Q will communicate on a regular basis with the noted candidates using a case management approach at our monthly meetings. Vision partners will communicate to the city on a larger basis on the status of the notified candidates and what resources they're accepting and how they're moving forward in their programs. We understand that there may be some candidates who do not accept the services. For candidates who do not accept services that are being provided, they will automatically move into the accountability aspect of Vision. So the partners at the Solano County District Attorney's Office and U.S. Attorney's Office are on board and supportive of the Vision program. Service and support will continue to be made available for their family members. So even though a candidate may say no, we will still offer those services to their family members. And for candidates who don't accept the services but don't reoffend, we would also consider that a successful contact. The custom notification was made and they've decided to change their behaviors based on that contact. That concludes my portion of the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up for public comment in the room. Seeing none, do we have public comment online?
Through the chair, not at this time. However, we do have Dr. Carter online as well.
Thank you. Dr. Carter, would you like to interject, or are you here just to answer questions if needed?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, greetings to everyone. I'm sorry that I could not be there in person. I did want to say we are excited to move forward. We are prepared. We've been meeting with the police department bi-weekly to set up our infrastructure and our processes of conducting our custom notifications. And I'm pleased to announce that the probation department is also interested in supporting Visions for those people who are on probation. And so I just wanted to let everyone know that that Center for Urban Excellence is ready to move forward, and it's been a long time coming. And I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing that we have no public comment, I will open it up to my colleague.
Thank you, Councilmember. So I'm going to ask the chief and Dr. Carter a question. A few months ago, there was a very long article on the Vallejo Sun about different gun violence reduction strategies that the city has pursued over the past 6 or 7 years. And the article was essentially saying, you know, there's been a lot of start and stop programs that the city has implemented. We can't really tell if they've been successful. And I'm elevating that this evening because I want to, from your perspective, sort of address that critique of that piece, and also to relay to the public, like, how is Vision different based on your knowledge? Because I know you haven't been here the entire time. How would this program be different than like some of the other models that have been deployed by the city, by previous city managers and by previous police chiefs?
Councilmember, you know, part of the vision, the strength of the Vision program is it really brings everybody to the table together, and it really refines a strategy that everybody is, like, to your point, there's that North Star here. So all the different partners, they have a different role and responsibility, and they know how they support each other for the same common goal. I think some of the programs that we had been engaged in the past, a lot of the grant programs, they had pieces of Vision, but they didn't really tie it all together. So I think most of it, I think Natalie may know more about some of the Prop 47 grant, but there were different alternative responses to either intervene or prevent that was really not working together in lockstep with the department. Vision is something that we are all partners in from the onset, and so every one of us has a role. Our goal is to only do enforcement when no other option works. So that's where the power, I think, of just bringing everything together and really having a focused idea on the data, because we have all the data. So when you have different violence reduction ambassadors, I'll just use that for an example, that's an effective program, but standalone it's not effective because you may have to pivot. The folks that you identify that week or that month or that year may not be the people that are the most in need for that intervention. So that's in my experience, seeing some of these programs that we were engaged previously before my time, which I inherited. We tried to do our best that we could with what we had, but knowing that there's something better out there, and knowing based on our public safety partnerships that we were able to take site visits, get tremendous amount of technical assistance, looking at what has worked in other cities, experiencing this type of exact behavior and violence. This model seems to work. It exists in many different names, but essentially, if you don't have everybody at the table from the beginning, you may have some blind spots that does not add to the effectiveness of the program.
And then Dr. Carter, I wasn't sure if you wanted to chime in. You don't need to, but just want to make sure I'm not speaking
Thank you.
over you.
No, thank you very much. I also wanted to also mention that the work that we are going to be doing through Center for Urban Excellence has a trauma-informed case management model. And so we understand the risk factors and also protective factors for those potential candidates. And, our standard operating procedures are rooted in trauma-informed care principles. And so I think that is also a very important distinction to make, as we know that those candidates, many of them have experienced trauma. And so our intervention specialists, our case managers are equipped to deal with some of those barriers as well.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. And then there's something that's been on my mind for the past couple months, and that is the deteriorating situation at the White Slough. Now, you may wonder, why am I bringing that up in relation to vision? What happens in a situation, like, how are you guys dealing with a situation where there may be crime in an area and perhaps it's not being reported to the extent that it should be reported, and is that being accounted for in this particular plan? Like, we just lost several folks a week or two ago along that corridor, and so I just want to get a sense of, is that element accounted for in vision, or is that a separate initiative that you guys are thinking through? And I'm sorry, Nadia, I didn't mean to.
No, I would say it's a bit of both. White Slough, I think, is a larger issue. There is obviously the violence that is happening out there, but the encampment portion, the private property ownership of it all. So White Slough is a larger conversation. City Manager Black is pulling together a meeting right now with a lot of our regional stakeholders in this to come up with a joint and united plan on how we can approach multiple aspects of what is going on White Slough. I would say that it also is slightly tied into the vision program through that referral process. We know who is engaging in violent behaviors, and those referrals will be coming through from the police officers and the detectives. So there may be individuals who are residing in or may be spending time at White Slough who are also part of that referral list. So I would say it's a little bit of both portions.
Right, that's all I got, Councilmember. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a couple of more process questions. And can you tell me who makes up BSHC, which is Vallejo Safety and Healing Collective, and who makes up Community Violence Intervention Impact Team?
Dr. Carter, are you able to speak to the teams?
Yes. So the Vallejo Safety and Healing Collective is comprised of many organizations that intersect with gun violence. So I'll just name out a few. We have the Solano County Office of Education. We also have the Vallejo Police Department. We also have the Probation Department. We have VEST is also a part of the collective. iHeart is a part of the collective. I'm trying to think. There's probably a couple of more organizations that are part of the actual collective. And the purpose is for us to come together to be on the same page. I think most of us are aware that organizations are typically operating on islands by themselves. So this effort brings us together to share information, to share best practices, and also training opportunities. And then with the CVI network, we have VEST, we have iHeart, we also have Ujima Family Recovery Services, Boys and Girls Empowerment Group, and I think that's it for now. And the purpose of the CVI Impact Team is to come together and do wraparound case management when we have identified someone who needs more services that CUBE can provide through our case management. We would directly refer and then complete releases of information so that we are able to wrap around and share information about the particular candidate.
Thank you for that. So can you please tell me, what's the criteria for those individuals in each of these collectives?
So there's one collective. The criteria is if you are we're addressing violence as a public health issue. So we're looking at root causes and risk factors for gun violence or
Oh, no,
for
I'm
violence.
sorry, doctor. What I mean is, what is the criteria for the selection of individual organizations or individuals coming into each of those collective impact areas?
Oh, the impact area. So basically, if they, for the CBI impact team, if they are providing services that intersect with gun violence intervention or prevention, they have made themselves available and been invited to participate in the impact team. I have reached out to several nonprofits, but for some strange reason, they are not showing up to participate. But we are continuing to build the CVI impact team based on identifying the needs of the potential candidates.
So are these different, outside of our police department, outside of potentially our education system, these different organizations that are a part of each of these collective groups or teams that you've put together, are they receiving a portion of the grant funds?
We do have some additional funding to provide professional service fees for them. But if they are already providing services in that area under a grant, we would not be able to provide the compensation for them because it would be considered double dipping and maybe a conflict.
Okay, and so then, to your point, and thank you for answering my questions. So one of the other things that I'm interested in knowing as we're talking about the different groups that are working together, coming together from a holistic perspective, when I think about gun violence, I also think about gang violence. And I think about how you continue to work and encourage throughout our city different partners that come from the varying different parts of our city so that we're able to be effective in the east, west, south, north with our community. And so I don't know what that strategy looks like, because I know that you're really working with the community, and our police department, while it is a collaboration, their role really is enforcement. And so what kind of help is needed to really ensure that the cohort members are representative of our communities? Because we have many individuals, many nonprofit organizations providing different types of services to the different areas of our community that are really important in really addressing this issue in a holistic manner, and that we are really able to ensure that we have members in this cohort that are able to relate and are credible messengers in the different areas of our city. And I know, you've talked about, you've invited others, but what kind of help would you need to really help round out these different groups that you have put together?
I think it would be helpful if if the city council members have relationships with these organizations to encourage them to participate. I mean, I think the reason why I developed the collective in the first place is because there was not one organization that was addressing gun violence at a deeper level. So there were a lot of community events happening, but that case management piece was really missing. And so it would be very helpful if some of these organizations could be referred to us, in addition to some capacity building activities for some of the smaller nonprofits that come to the work because they care, right? But to manage the grant monies and to be able to do reporting, some of the nonprofits fall short. So I think it's a combination of building capacity as well as referring folks to and encouraging folks to join in on the collective effort.
So my question I'm not sure if you know this, Natalie or the chief. So with that grant, as we talk about building nonprofit organizations in our community, and we've heard this before, building their capacity because they are already doing the work and they are credible messengers in the community and able to move parts of community that maybe another organization can't. Does the grant funding have a mechanism in play where there is that capacity building and support? Because it is foundational to the work that you're doing if we're really going to service the community and not just segments of our community.
Through the chair, if I may, there is some capacity in the grant, and I don't have the exact dollar amount in front of me, for Q to essentially act as the umbrella organization and help bring smaller organizations who may not have all of the resources to go for a larger grant such as this, to help provide those supports. So if there are organizations that are interested, I'd be more than happy to meet with them in Q and see what conversation can be had to get them on board and what that fiscal support could look like.
I don't think it's just going for additional dollars or a grant. That's not necessarily the only place that I'm coming from, but I'm talking about the capacity to manage your organization and really be an organization that becomes stable as they're doing the work and have the support to do the work. The perspective that I'm seeing here, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong, you have put together BSHC, you've put together CVI, and the goal is so that you can have a holistic approach within the community to assist the community as it relates to gun violence. And in order to do that, there's the admission of that, Q can't do that alone. Otherwise, they would not have strategically put these two different groups together. And so capacity building happens in many respects. So it's not just, oh, am I doing capacity building so that you can get a grant? That's part of the process, but how am I running my organization? How am I doing the work? And how do I become part of the larger picture so I'm convergent and divergent in this work so that we're successful? So I don't know what that looks like in terms of deciding how you offer capacity building. And I'm not asking for the answer today, but it's something that I would like everyone to think about if we are going to build out a program that's strategically and holistically able to serve our community. Because when we talk about gun violence, we can give many examples in our city. And if vision is going to be, as the chief says, it's very different, it is more holistic, then I'm expecting greater impacts within every area of our community, not just one segment, the north side, the south side, whatever side it is. I'm expecting to be able to see the fruit of that labor, the fruit of these dollars throughout the entire community of Vallejo and bringing down gun violence. And fundamentally also really targeting our young people who have guns in their hands for varying reasons. And some of those guns in those hands are because there is not enough or sufficient support, financial support, along with moral support. There's lack, and there's reasons sometimes why they're carrying those guns. So this program, if it's different, and I believe it is, then how do we bring in those smaller groups? How do you identify Q, PPD, whoever else are our partners, that these are some of the groups that we really need to the council, whether it's on the dais or in a private meeting, and we go out and help you say, hey, to whatever that organization is, have you considered, this is why we need you here. So I'd like to see some kind of plan, some kind of document that says, here are some of the nonprofit organizations doing certain work that we really need their skill set. and this would be helpful, and here's how we can support them. Here's how you can support us in continuing to make this program successful and get off the ground.
Understood. We will do that work and get back to you at an upcoming meeting with next steps and a game plan. Thank
Okay.
you.
So those are all my comments and questions. City Manager Black, would you like to comment?
No, I think you raised a good question regarding nonprofit capacity building. As the chief mentioned, this program, visions, and the role that Q will be playing, we've seen this before. Whatever you might want to call it, I'm used to calling it ceasefire. I've led ceasefire in 2 cities, Stockton, Cincinnati. It works. But someone asked a question earlier, Councilmember Mateus, in terms of the starts and stops. With this work, it's most successful when a city, a community, has a stick-to-itiveness to it. Okay, you can't start, this is not a part-time endeavor. You do this 24/7, 365 days a year. And so, and you're gonna have down periods because it's hard to sustain something at the same intensity forever. But, so you have to reinvent the program, you have to reinvigorate it periodically. And typically when we get to reinvigorating it is when obviously we have an uptick or a spike in gun violence. And that's when we really, we do the call-in immediately. You don't want to do the call-ins too frequently, but you want to do at least 3 to 4 call-ins a year. And the call-in is when you pull all of these people together in a room with the help of PD, and you're just putting them right there saying, look, this is what you guys are out there doing right now. This is what is happening to our city. This is what can happen to you if you guys don't get it together. And we're going to help you get it together with all of these services and so forth and so on. But it's about stick-to-itiveness. This model works. It has been empirically proven to reduce gun violence, even recently. But just getting back to the nonprofit element of this, during the pandemic, it was all hands on deck for every city government, every organization, because we were in a crisis, and so the key is how are we going to come through for our communities? People need to eat, they need to be able to get health care, they need safety and security, and so it was a very overwhelming time. And so we needed to rely on our nonprofit network as an extension of city government. But what I realized in Stockton was that the way that the nonprofit community is set up in Stockton, and I think it's even worse here actually, just from my general initial observation, is you've got that top 2 to 3% of nonprofits that are like, they've got the muscles, they've got the capacity, they can do it. But then that middle group, they need a lot of help, and then the group below them, they're barely holding on. So we still worked with them, they were super helpful to us, but something that, the real solution, I think, Council, Member Ledger, in terms of your question, is what we did in Stockton is we established a nonprofit capacity building academy where we would bring 20 to 30 executives from 20 to 30 different nonprofits in for a 10-month cohort to learn how to basically operate a business, because a nonprofit is a business, okay? How do you manage your board? How do you go after grant funding? How do you manage your budget? How do you do strategic planning, et cetera? So that's really the ultimate answer to the question. I mean, we can do other things and we'll bring those things back, but a great many of these nonprofits, they need some hands-on training, support, development. And hopefully at some point, maybe we can get around to doing that here too. But we'll do what we can for right now, and we'll get back to you with respect to what those things might be.
Thank you, City Manager. So I just want to further underscore a point and then make a separate point. So if you guys tuned in to last night's meeting, Councilmember Letterju pulled an item. She was talking about how are we being equitable in the decisions that we're making? How are we making sure that resources are flowing to different parts of the city, that we're engaging different nonprofit organizations, that we're serving the entirety of Vallejo. So I want to just let you guys know that she's said that 2 meetings in a row. She said it last night. She said it today. I think she said it last month. So what we want to see, just to be very direct, is when it comes to the Vallejo Safety and Healing Collective, the community violence intervention, if we don't have geographic representation as part of these groups and there's some barrier, the council should be brought in to support. If there is some financial barrier that may preclude folks from participating in these things, we should be made aware of that. Because otherwise, what you're doing is we're having the same groups participating in the same programs, and we're not really reaching the entire city. And that's how we're going to see, to her point, the biggest impact in deploying and implementing a program that actually works. There's empirical evidence behind it. So I want to make sure that any report outs we receive on Vision has a list of what organizations we're engaging and are part of these collaboratives. At the same time, one of the things that I think we need to move away from is being so insular as a city. So a lot of these cities are dealing with the same problems that we're dealing with. And if we don't talk to them, if we're not plugged into coalitions and we're not really hearing, like, is there this kind of, are there side shows going on in similar cities to Vallejo, and do we expect that to carry up to us? Is there gun violence happening, et cetera, et cetera? So we were in meetings with a gentleman by the name of David Muhammad last year, Councilmember Latitude, and he has this convening called the Bay Area Regional Violence Reduction Program. So we're going to connect you to him. It would be very helpful to have city management representation on that collaborative. You've got Antioch, Oakland. I think they even have a rep for Stockton. I think you probably worked with them in the past. So that collaborative meets every month, and they talk through all the things. We should be a part of that, and then that's information that should be fed into Vision and into the meetings that are happening here in Vallejo. So collaboration is important, as well as communication, and then the last ingredient is accountability. So want to see, at least from my vantage point, some reporting to this body around how that this program is continuing to be implemented and how we can be supportive. So those are my 3 cents instead of 2.
Sir, can you elaborate on the geographic and financial support a little bit for me?
So in terms of geographic support, I mean, I just want to make sure all parts of Vallejo, whether we have nonprofit representation or community leaders, that they're a part of this collaborative, that all of Vallejo is being represented. She's been hammering this point for several months in meetings, and I want to make sure you guys understand that when it comes to these coalitions that you're building, if there's some folks that are not represented, maybe you don't have South Vallejo on the table. Maybe you don't have my district. And you've identified through your Neighborhood Watch program key community leaders. How do we bring them into the fold to be a part of the solution? So we got to branch out, and we got to make sure we're covering all of Vallejo. That's 1. And then 2, there was a lot of chatter just now around the grant that Q has received, how much money may be flowing out to organizations. I don't know, because I'm not in the sausage making, but what I'm going to say is, if for any reason financing is a barrier, or like funding, right? Some person can't attend or be a part of this collaborative because they don't have the funds or the means to do so. Like, we need to know if that's a barrier. I've said this before in the philanthropic space. If we call somebody in to help out at least when I was in that space, I work for a nonprofit now. If we ever ask someone to lend their expertise or to help support with a program or be a part of a coalition, we compensated them for their time. Now, I know that this might be controversial in Vallejo, but if someone has expertise that they're lending and they're helping you solve a problem, you should probably pay them. That's a thing in the philanthropic space, and it's been a thing for a long time. So if that is a problem with vision, please let us know. Please let this body know. Please let the council know, so that we can figure out how to, make sure that the entire community is at the table. I think that's it.
And we also have crime survivors for safe and justice. We have time done. So there's a lot of resources that we have. And again, I appreciate all the work that's being done and the time that you have taken to develop an infrastructure, a strong infrastructure. I hear it and I appreciate it. And to my colleague's point, I continue to say that it is extremely important how we're gathering all of our information, how we're putting together teams, how we're inclusive in our communities. And I'm going to say this for everyone, it is, I don't have to like you. I make friends after we get done doing whatever we're doing. This is about the community and how are we all getting on the same page to see our community healed and to see our community thrive and move forward. There's nothing personal in this work at all. It is we as public servants on the government side, and even when we are we're doing these programs with all of our different nonprofit organizations, these are public dollars. They are here to serve our community, however much they are. And so how do we maximize it? How do we ensure we have all the right people at the table? And again, as a council member, I'm here to assist. If there's someone who needs to be at the table and they won't come to the table, I'll go talk to them and tell them why I need them at the table and what difference it's going to make in our community. And those tables have to look like our community. It's very important. And I agree with Councilmember Mateas. Everyone, not all organizations will come from our community, but we are gleaning the expertise. And part of also having outside relationships provide opportunities to connect us to other places, other sources that we might not otherwise have been able to tap into because we have no relationship. So it's really important how we get people at the table. We have an organization here by Tanish Holland, and she does a lot of work at the state level. She has moved tons of policy. And how is the city going to engage her? She works with the governor's office. She has moved much policy around survivors, around gun violence. And I've said this to PD, and I'm going to say it again. We need to talk to her. She has done a lot of work in her short time with the community, and she has brought press here around gun violence and so forth and on. And so how are we using resources in our community, and how are we reaching outside of our community? And those connections connect us to higher levels of government that can be very instrumental in our communities when we're talking about dollars, when we're talking about being on the radar. It's important to be on the radar. When you're on the radar at the governor's level and something happens, somebody responds. So we can't stay in our bubble. We have to figure out how to be on the radar beyond just our bubble, because we don't have those dollars. And communities on the radar get those dollars. So I just want to share that. And I'm here to support you. Councilmember Mateus is here to support you. He works in philanthropy. And so there are ways that we can do this together. We have a role too as leaders in this community to help you. It's not all on all of you. We're a part of the solution. So I'm going to close this item, and I just want to thank.
Through the chair, Dr. Carter did have her hand raised. She wanted
Sure,
to-
I'm sorry, Dr. Carter.
Oh, thank you very much. I did want to mention, I do have a question, but I did want to mention that I am well connected with Tunisian Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice. We worked together 30 years ago when I did gun violence in San Francisco. She was very present at our initial meetings to use the blueprint for shared safety, and that brings everyone together. As far as Time Done goes, and they do the legislation and advocacy, but we're really needing more organizations that do direct service work with individuals. So if there is a way, Dr. Letiju, for you to identify some additional nonprofit organizations that actually do case management, it would be very helpful to invite them to join in our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. I received that. And again, thank you all for the work that you do at Q. So I'll now close this item and we'll move on to our next item. Thank you, Natalie. Sex trafficking program.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sergeant Salmiaga with the Problem-Oriented Policing Team. Just want to go over some recent updates as of late since the last time we talked. So I'd like to start with our joint operations, what we use to combat sex trafficking with a demand customer reduction strategy. So since April, we've conducted a total of 5 operations, 35 arrests, 20 of those individuals were from out of town. We recovered a firearm during those arrests, and we towed 27 of those vehicles. Anytime we did contact a victim during these arrests, we would provide them community-based organization resources, and of course, if they were willing to accept those resources, but they were absolutely offered. As of late as well, my team and I are assigned current human trafficking investigations. We have recently rescued a total of 3 female juveniles and are continuing those investigations, which are currently active and ongoing. But if you could understand, it takes a lot of time. Additionally, 3 of the LVT cameras were moved to our Marin area, also known as the Blade, which is the most prolific area in our city currently for this kind of behavior. We placed a LVT tower at front of 425 Alabama Street. We placed another LVT tower in front of 1200 Marin Street, and then a third one at Marin and Tennessee Street. In addition to that, we were able to also successfully install those signs. This is a good picture of one. This is at Florida and Marin. Sergeant Hollis and myself got with the city workers to strategically place these signs based on our current trends. So far, I believe from our observations of my team and I, we do still continuously go out there daily to conduct extra patrols to deter any kind of illicit activity and give the residents of Marin Street in particular that this is affected by some more peace of mind, at least that they see us out there. But from my observations, I believe it has reduced overall, but again, we just have to continue that enforcement, continue the trends, and keep trying. We've also contacted a few community members on our extra patrols. We are commonly in vehicles, but we also go out on foot. My team and I have contacted several members of the community in that affected area and received pretty positive feedback. We get the occasional waves and thumbs up when we pull somebody over, which is always nice to see, and it's always good that they see us out there. Lastly, I was able to compile some of the monthly statistics based on the call for service stats. We started with May 6th to June 6th. There was various calls for service affected in that area. I can briefly go over those. So it ranged from suspicious persons and circumstances, general disturbances, shootings, court order violations, indecent exposures, criminal threats, reckless drivers, rapes, alarm calls, arson, loitering, firearm brandishing, and complaints of alleged sex workers. In the preceding month after that, from June 7th to July 20th, there was an overall reduction of 20%. So that list kind of cut itself in half. And I believe that's attributed to our enforcement efforts of the extra patrols that we do. And it's not just my team. Patrol does also do a great job and comes out and helps, specifically as well as on those operations, because we can't do it all on our own. So it's definitely a combined effort from the department, again, in conjunction with the city to help change some environmental factors to work in our favor. And hopefully we can continue with that trend of reducing this and improving quality of life for those residents. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have public comment in the room?
Hello, good evening. My name is Avidel Hanley Mills. I am a community leader, but I'm actually here as a homeowner. I've been homeowner in this area since 1999. I know I look 12. But I'd like to say and congratulate the team because I've seen a lot of activities there for many years, and this is one of the first times where there's active police involvement, not just in the area, but with community members. We had a community neighborhood watch meeting. We had Sergeant Hollis come out. We had iHeart come out. And in speaking with the store owners in the area, they've also had meetings with Hollis and other agencies to address this issue. The signs have gone up, which is amazing. I have walked there and had a police officer circle around. We identified a driver and circled, and the police officer said, "You need to go." That was amazing because we have children in our community and family members. I've known 2 neighbors, longtime neighbors, who've moved out because they have young children and young girls too. I mean, boys are affected, but it's an issue. And so I just want to say, we speak about, what the police the Vallejo police is not doing. I think it's also important to address and highlight what they are doing. And I see a definite reduction in the community. I walk the community. I have a dog. Some people think I'm a police officer because my blinkers go off when I'm walking. I'm like, well, if you need to drive by, that's fine. So it's, this is not a community where, we're not active. We're active in very silent ways. We stand at the corner and we just stand there to deter whatever is happening. And I don't think the general Vallejo is aware of how active we are. But I also want to know. I also want to say that I've seen how the police department in this particular unit have been very active, and we need to give them that kind of adulation in terms of what they have done, because this has been 1999, that's a long time, and this is one of the first times that I've seen where it's not just, an event, or someone is running for mayor, or counselor, whatever. This is consistent, and it's not just consistent, it's consistently interaction with the community members. So I want to give an applause to this team of your hard work and also engagement, because as we've all said here, partnership and engagement and community is not just one thing, it's everyone. And they have definitely included the community. And when community and law enforcement work together, we see success. And hopefully we can put that in every area of our city. So thank you.
Do we have any more public comment in the room, please? Seeing none, do we have public comment online?
Through the chair, no speakers signed up for this item at this time.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Just real quick. So at a council meeting, I was not successful, but I did elevate the need for there to be greater collaboration between the city and the Vallejo Recreation District, GVRD. Not only do I want to see more activations happening at City Park, but I also want to see if we can potentially leverage the fact that there is a park there to come up with some legal solutions to continue to support the work that your team is doing on the ground. I mean, there's a lot of kids in that area, as public commenter just alluded to, and we need to be able to leverage every tool at our disposal. The last piece, which I've mentioned several times, and this is to the city manager and his public works teams, is like just in terms of physical. So I know there were speed tables that were put down in the area, but can we do more? That area in particular has had trafficking going on for I don't know how long. And so I'm very appreciative of the work that Public Works was able to put forth this past year in that area, but to the extent that we can put more lighting, we can put additional physical barriers, we can really change the flow of traffic in that area. I think it would continue to help with this effort. And then when it comes to consistency, I think that's the only question I have, right? Like, we only have one pop team. And I feel like every couple months you guys are being shifted to do something else. And so when it comes to maintaining consistency in operations, like, is there anything else we could be doing? Any other ideas you guys have talked about internally?
Yeah, Councilmember, thank you for the question. I just want to also thank the speaker for stating what you have experienced, with some of the hard work that our staff has been able to do. I've been doing this work a long time, and a lot of people wait 2 or 3 hours to complain about something, but very few people wait this long to offer a compliment. So this means a lot to myself and our staff, because we are working hard for you guys every day. So to build this consistency, I think obviously in the enforcement side there is staffing that we talked about that earlier, and how we plan to retain and increase our staffing. We started a coalition, I think it was at the end of May, it might have been June, and had a really good initial stakeholder meeting. We were hoping to do another one in August. August was the month before July kind of bled into August, was very, very busy for us. So we are talking about having a secondary stakeholder meeting sometime in September, so that way we can build out the infrastructure. So the first meeting really highlighted to a lot of my staff the importance of intervention and prevention. A lot of the contacts never go through PD. For example, a lot of victims would reach out to legal advisors or, other resources that really did not fall within a criminal investigation. So that is still a win, because if we can find some positive exit strategies to reduce this type of behavior, it impacts the communities and us significantly. So that is ongoing. We do have some challenges, as we look for some potential grant funding to at least seed some of these intervention prevention strategies, in the hope that in speaking with city manager for long term, because as he had mentioned earlier, this grant money is great, but what are you going to do when it goes away? And so our hope is really to build our staff out to the point where we use the seed money to really make a huge dent, and then the maintenance phase will be something, I think, with staffing improvements we can maintain. And hopefully, when that day comes where we have to go into the maintenance phase with some of the other partners, they are already in this work, and hopefully we'll be committed to maintaining some level of maintenance in our city after those grant dollars expire.
Thank you. Thank you to our speaker for sharing that information. I also want to share with you all, I happen to be at a business on Marin, and that individual actually spoke of you and just really how they really appreciate the change that's coming. They do see the change. The business owners see the change. The community sees the change. And so, again, I agree with our speaker. I just wanted to thank you all for that work. It's meaningful, it's hard, and again, we're stretched. I always like to acknowledge our government resources are stretched. We're small, but we're mighty, and we keep pushing, and we are doing it, and you all are making a difference in our community. And can we solve everything? We can't solve everything. And we are working on all the hard things day by day. And so I do want to thank you for all the hard work that you do continuously and consistently in our city. So thank you all for that work. So I don't have any, I'm going to close this item if we're done, and thank you for the report. And we'll move to our action item calendar. And 7A is consideration of modifying the subcommittee regular meeting schedule to a bi-monthly frequency.
Can we continue that item to
September.
Yeah, to September. I mean, in full transparency, because I don't like to be cagey. We've had some challenges just coming together as a group and meeting quorum. We've had availability challenges, and so we were exploring the possibility of sort of changing the frequency. We had also seen substantial improvement in our public safety, so we thought about, does it make sense for us to continue to meet monthly? But then in just this past month, we saw a spike, and so just in this meeting, we were sidebarring, and we think it's important to keep these on, and I don't think it's prudent to have that conversation at this time. So if it's okay with you, I think we should just continue this item to next month.
I would agree. And I do want to acknowledge, I know it takes a lot of time. I have a board outside of this board that it takes a lot of work for the staff. It requires a lot of staff hours to do the work that you do. So I do acknowledge that. And I also will say that the work that you do and this committee has been very valuable in the many things that we have accomplished over, but it's almost been a year. And together we've done a lot. And I think it's important. It still is a, safety still, for me as a council member, and I believe for Councilmember Mateas, safety still is number one, because safety is really the infrastructure of everything we do: economic development, our education, our health and wellness in our city, how we feel about being here. And so you are critical to how our city moves forward, the work that you do. And I feel like these meetings are, from my perspective, I'm committed to them. They're worth my time, and I believe we're getting a lot of things done together. And it is also a format in which, how are we supporting you and really hearing the day-to-day operations, unlike if you come to council every quarter, whatever the case may be. And so one of the things that you might think about is, with some of the reportings, do we stagger them every other meeting or something like that? So we can think about what that looks like, so it's not so onerous on staffing, because we do want you to do the work while you're also taking the time to do the reporting. So we can have some of that kind of conversation offline, Chief, and with your staff and city manager as well. And so I would agree. Would you like to make the motion?
Yes, and I think the other, since we have the city manager here, I think, because I was just thinking in real time, Councilmember Latiju, I do think the point at which we should revisit this should actually be in January, because we have elections coming up. And so we may want to just revisit in terms of our standing committees, who's sitting where, and how can we best utilize the entire council team to move all of these buckets of work forward. So yeah, agree with you, totally committed. I move that we continue action item 7A. Do you want to say October or just next month? Or November or?
Let's do it in September so we can talk about
Okay.
what's the cadence in their reporting.
To the September meeting. Do you need roll call?
Councilmember Latiju.
Aye.
Councilmember Matias.
Yes. And I think that's that. That motion passes. And then 7B, Councilmember Latiju, want to continue that one to next month?
Yes.
Okay. So I also move that we continue item 7B to the September Public Safety Subcommittee meeting.
And so what I'll commit to, if we can, perhaps we'll go out of order and take our action calendar items first, those two items, and then we can proceed with our regular cadence, if you don't mind. In all transparency, I have a little 7-year-old who's waiting for me, who's going out of town, and I'm late.
Okay, we'll call the vote. Councilmember Latiju.
Aye.
Councilmember Matias.
Yes, and my apologies to the iHeart team who sat and waited for hours. Yeah.
We enjoyed having you here. You are important to us.
Yes, but we'll see you next month, and hopefully you can get some rest. All right. With that, identify items for subcommittee to agendize for future meetings. Any items, council member?
No. Do you have any?
No, I mean, I sent a note to the team around the sideshow activity and whether or not there were any additional legal actions we could take to deter that type of behavior. So just something for you guys to think about, but I don't want to see sideshows in Vallejo again. We had a very calm period for about a year, and then I saw an article that looked like it came straight out of Grand Theft Auto. Exploding fireworks and all the things. So, no, it's just something for you guys to think about, but no additional items. And then are we adjourned?
Just one question. As you are kicking off Vision, I'd like for you to, Chief, think about what could be the cadence around having some report outs, really more about the outcomes in the community and just numbers around how many contacts you're having and those kinds of things. I'd really like to hear. And I'd like to have some demographic information around those contacts. And I understand PII, so it's really what I'm looking more is from what area of what districts, male, female, age, those kinds of things. I'm interested in really looking at what is the impact to our youth in particular, and would really also like to understand, have some education as well as income, those kinds of stats. Because that kind of information is very telling. We're used to seeing race and so forth and on, but I'd like to have deeper demographic information that then, as a city, tells us who are the individuals that we are interacting with in this program around gun violence, and really looking at what could be some of the potential root causes, and then what else does that mean for us as a city in terms of supportive services? You know, because I can guarantee you, and I'm sure you already know this, a lot of this really is around how individuals are able to have a life that is thriving. What's missing?
Yeah,
We need to get to the root causes.
Yeah, we can provide that. Some of that obviously is going to be voluntary information.
Yes,
that we may or
whatever
may
we
not-
have, we may
right.
not have it, you know.
Yeah, we'll get you as much as we can.
Yeah, and we can say for 20 of the 50 participants, we were not able to collect that kind of information. And I think that's important as well, you know. So it tells us a lot about whatever we have is going to help us really have a deeper understanding and dialogue about what else. You know, this is really important to me personally and professionally, because I believe that changes the conversation in community, and that changes how we service in community as well. So again, thank you. So it is it 8:51, and we are adjourning. And again, thank you all for being here.